Where are your sisters?
I can't find them.
Anna? Joy?
I checked the entire house. They're not here.
They weren't outside. It's starting to rain, I think. Dad, there was this RV, and they were playing on it. We thought there was someone inside.
You wait here.
Let me go! I couldn't find them!
911.
Detective Loki.
Do you have children, detective?
I'm gonna find your daughters.
These are the kind of movies I hate coming home and reviewing with y'all.
Why's that?
Because it's all dark and tragic, and I come back here laughing and shit with y'all. Not taking nothing serious. I always something will come out, I'm going to say, I'm going to give this movie respect. I'm not going to be goofy. I'm not going to be silly with it. And I come here, and I start looking at y'all and laughing. And on top of that, we got people that just say ridiculous shit out when we come out of the movie, but we'll get into that a little bit later. We're talking about Prisoners. This is supposed to be a movie that a lot of people have been looking forward to as being one of the best movies of the year.
Sure.
This is one of the movies that did very well at Toronto International Film Festival, so I was eager to see it. Not to say some things I can see they're talking about and some things I can't. But for the most part, I think that this is, well, we'll get into that in a little while.
Jesus.
I don't know if we'll ever get into it.
I mean, it's hard to be lighthearted about a film that's about child abduction, right? Right from the bat, you're like, how are you supposed to be funny about that? When you know a movie starts like that, you're like, buckle in, this is going to be a long ride, because it's probably not going to be anything lighthearted or funny. I mean, there might be a clown at some point, but probably not the ha-ha type of clown.
Yeah, not the kind of clown you want. No. This is a very dark film, but it's also a pretty cool mystery. Hugh Jackman plays a guy named Keller Dover, and he's hanging out at his only black friend's house. He's hanging out.
I have a black friend.
Yeah. Hey, this Thanksgiving, let's go hang out with a black family.
Of course, it's Terrence Howard, because after Tony Stark said, "Get the hell out of here," I'm gonna find me another white superhero to hang out with.
I'll go.
Yeah, Rhodey hanging out with the Wolverine.
Sorry, I'll go hang out with Wolverine. Yeah, he goes over to Terrence Howard and Viola Davis's house, and his little white daughter's playing with her black daughter, and they're having a good time, and
they're living the Martin Luther King dream.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the picturesque of that dream.
They even have teenagers at the same age.
Oh my God!
One a girl, one a boy.
Yeah, and they're hanging out together. No telling what they're doing. They go off with each other, but anyway, everything's cool. They're goofing around, laughing, having a good time, drinking.
It's Thanksgiving.
And then the girls say, "Hey, can we go play?" And they say, yeah. And they just assuming that the brother and the sister are going to escort them. No, these little kids go off on their own. When that happens, something bad, something bad is going to happen.
Obviously, they have no clue about teenagers.
Yeah, exactly. So then when they leave, I guess 2 hours later, the family gets through eating. They're like, hey, where the kids?
Hey, teenagers, where are those kids you're supposed to be taking care of?
Yeah,
Actually, that's exactly what happens.
Shit, I don't know, thought you were watching. And don't care.
We were getting high.
Yeah, exactly. So they're looking for the kids. They can't find them. The only evidence that they have of what might have happened to these kids is an RV that's out in front of a house that's down the street. And so when they eventually know that the kids are missing, they ain't going to come back up. They call the police. In comes Detective Loki. Yes, just like Thor, Detective Loki, L-O-K-I. Apparently his fans were big fans of the Avengers, but he comes in and he says, "I'm going to be working your case. Look, I'm good. Ain't never lost a case." So they do end up in less than 24 hours finding the RV, finding who's in it. There's this guy who has the mentality of a 10-year-old played by Paul Dano. Of course he must be guilty. I mean, he's retarded. Everybody's thinking, shit, yeah, he did it.
Paul Dano always looks guilty of something.
True. Told you, always moist, always looking crazy. But it's even raining when they find him, so he's extra wet.
He always looks like he's just finished masturbating for some reason.
He does. He's got his hair all over his face.
He's all messed up.
He's always breathing hard. Yeah. Put your hands up. Okay, put your hand back down.
Get that tissue out of your pocket.
Yeah.
You handcuff him. I'm not touching him.
I ain't touching him. But they go over the RV. Everything is clean. They cannot find anything. If they can't find anything, they got to let this guy go. Hugh Jackman, who at this point, where before he was laughing and having a good time at Thanksgiving, once they can't find the kids, everything he says is like this.
There's no way that someone with the IQ of a 10-year-old could abduct 2 girls in broad daylight and then somehow make them disappear.
Well, maybe he wasn't on his own. How could he drive an RV if he has an IQ of a 10-year-old?
Hey, we're considering all possibilities.
I don't think you are considering all possibilities.
I hear what you're saying.
No,
Sir,
listen to me. Just shut up for a second.
This is what I'm going to need you to do for me. I need you to calm down. Mr. Dover, I understand this is an incredibly hard time, but I have every uniformed police officer in this state looking for Anna.
I don't understand what any of this means. They said he ran. They said he tried to get away. I don't understand why he would try to run away.
I hear what you're saying. I'm not crossing anybody off my list. Just let me do my job.
And he said, "You can't find my kids. I'm gonna kidnap the guy and I'm gonna torture him until I get there. So I won't."
You heard the shinks?
Yeah, exactly. You know that sometime on the set, like claws just came out of his hand. Found my kids. Cut. God damn, you stabbed another person, Hugh Jackman. All right, do it again. Found my daughter, bub. Cut. You are not Wolverine. But yeah, he says, you know what? All right, if you're gonna let this guy go, and especially when the kid says something to Hugh Jackman out in the parking lot when he's released, that probably indicates he knows more about what's going on than the cops think that he does. Then Hugh Jackman just says, you know what? I'm just gonna take matters into my own hand. I'm gonna kidnap his ass and I'm gonna torture him until he tells me where my daughter and her friend are. And that's where the movie not only turns into a pretty cool mystery, but also this whole moral debate, or what it should have caused moral debates about, is this right or is this wrong what he did? How far should you go for your children? You get what I'm saying.
And ultimately, like, the underlying thing through the whole thing is the idea of, like, what loss and pain can do to a person.
Oh, yeah.
Like the degree to which they just lose all their sensibility and turn into this crazy person who morality becomes neither here nor there for. All that matters is them and their shit.
How come none of these issues were brought up in the Taken movie? That's what I'm kind of scratching my head right now.
Because Liam Neeson knew he was going to get his daughter back. He's like, hey, I'm a badass. Ain't no question.
Here's the thing. Like, for normal people, kidnapping somebody and torturing them, that's a moral quandary. Am I right? Liam Neeson doesn't take time. He don't have no second thought about that.
He ain't got time for that shit.
Yeah, that's on his to-do list.
And to be fair, like, if Liam Neeson was in this situation, well, I mean, he's like, he knows basically who has his daughter. He's just got to get to it. He knows, there's a time thing. He has a general idea. All he has to do is keep torturing people until he gets to her. Here, this one guy, no idea where his daughters are, and Wolverine's just like, look, I keep torturing this guy and he ain't saying shit, so I don't know what to do.
I guess I just got to keep beating his ass. Wait, it gets really interesting. For me, probably the most interesting part is that after he's had Paul Dano and like beat him up as much as he can, he goes and gets Terrence Howard and says, like, hey, bring some clothes, come here, I got to show you something. And brings him there like, all right, I got this guy, been beating him up, you got to help me so we can get information out of him. Yeah. And for Terrence Howard, this is like, fuck, man, I didn't ask for this, and I don't. You need to let this guy go. I don't want to turn you in, but I don't want you thinking I'm a pussy that I don't want to do what I have to do to find my kid. But come on, why you even drag me into this?
Even in my Iron Man suit, I can't do shit.
I can't do nothing for you. I'm gonna tell you something. If you want somebody to play nervous in your movie, get Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard plays nervous like nobody else. I mean, even when he's his regular normal self, he's like this, man. He's always talking like. But they bring him in. They bring him in when Hugh Jackman brings him in to show him that he has Paul Dano hostage. He's been torturing him. I just love the way he just starts shaking. Man, are you out of your mind? What are you doing? Hugh Jackman is not you, man.
I think that's why he wasn't in Iron Man 2, because he shaked himself out of that suit too many times.
He's like, I think you got this, man.
I know, right?
I mean, from that point on, like, just like Hugh Jackman, where once the daughter gets kidnapped, he's just yelling. Once the daughter gets kidnapped for Terrence Howard, he's just crying and shaking, don't know what to do, man.
So how does Donnie Darko play into all this? I know he's like the main guy.
Oh, that's right. You didn't see this.
No, I did not see this. No.
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal here is like Corey said earlier. He's a cop. He's apparently very good at his job. They say at one point like, your boss told me you've never not solved a case. He's like, yeah, but I was a parking attendant.
Yeah.
No, I've solved.
Really? I can't wait to see this movie.
But it's one of these things. It's almost like he's this young cop who solved all his cases. So he comes off as a little bit callous in the beginning,
and a little bit arrogant, certainly about these things. Which
fuels Hugh Jackman getting mad. Like, you understand why he would be losing his mind. It's like, dude, get passionate about this.
It's not like he's technically
my kid.
It's not like he's technically doing anything wrong as a cop. In fact, he's following the rules to the book. But that's part of the problem. He kind of has no bedside manner when it comes to dealing.
It's like
with
your
these
kid gets
people.
kidnapped. Of course, you're gonna be losing it, and you got this cop going, "Sir, you need to calm calm down. It's like, no, this is one situation where I don't need to calm down.
This is what's cool about the film, about how the perception of how these characters are. I'm going to tell you something about Jake Gyllenhaal in a little bit, man. That's important. But the thing is, where you saw him just kind of being callous, I think that this is a guy he solved so many cases and has been in this situation so much that this is how he knows how to react to people. He can't get over emotional. He has to have people stay calm so that he can do his job.
Yeah, but okay, there's a way to get people to stay calm, but there's also a way to do it where you sound patronizing.
Yeah, and that's his problem.
And that's how he sounds.
And he's not trying to. You never get the feeling.
Yeah, he's not trying to.
Like I said, you never get the feeling like, as an actor, he's not going, calm down. He's not doing that. He's just playing it so much by the book that he, like probably to Hugh Jackman's character, and certainly to me as an audience member, he just seems uninvolved. And Hugh Jackman is so emotionally involved. He wants someone else to feel like he gets where he's coming from. And that's the problem. That's what sets Hugh Jackman off on this course to, well, I'm going to do this shit myself. They don't think this guy is guilty. Well, I'm going to take him. I know he's guilty because that's all he has to hold on to. That's the only thread there is that he has that might lead him back to his daughter. And he is going to pull at that thing till something unravels.
And what you need to know about like Hugh Jackman, his character's, the backstory is that he's a guy, he's religious. He's a survivalist. His basement is stocked with all provisions in case the worst happens. But shit, like things have gotten as bad as they can be. And his wife, played by Maria Bello, she's constantly drugging herself. She can't stop crying. And she cries to him and says, like, you were supposed to protect us.
Oh, damn.
Now, what's he going to do?
Where's manhood was hit him right in the nuts.
Seriously.
That sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, y'all. Okay, Jake Gyllenhaal should have came in and gave him flowers and chocolates. All right.
Hey,
Okay, I'm messing with you. See what you do to me sometimes. But,
We're going to put you in a closet and see what happens.
all right, I'm gonna call Liam Neeson. He's gonna find me. I'm gonna call you Jackman. He's gonna get the wrong person. He's gonna get getting you co-hosting Torture You.
Hey, I'd love to meet them.
You know something? I will say this about Jake Gyllenhaal. I think that his performance. I mean, this is I think more than the story here. And like I said, it is a cool mystery because it does keep you wondering. Who knows what? Mm-hmm. How is everything tying together? I mean, they just keep introducing clues, and they don't. They're going to converge at some point, but they're not. They're not overly explained in the beginning, like a true mystery should be. But Jake Gyllenhaal, out of all these performances, his is a little more subdued. His is a little more laid back, and I really like his character, man. Whenever he's on, he's so good. There were moments where I didn't even know how to take the movie because his character is probably so. He's so routine about his job. You're right that everything that he does is just an everyday thing to him, to the point where he's doing stuff that makes the audience giggle. Whenever something is serious happened to somebody else, his reaction is like, "Oh, what the fuck?"
That kind of lightens things a little bit, which it needs to be lightened.
Yeah, I really liked him though, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think everybody gave the performance that was expected because everybody has to be over emotional. For somebody to balance this movie out, you needed someone like Jake Gyllenhaal, and I think he was. I found him to be amazing.
He was a ballistically anchored person as a cop in this situation who, as the film goes on, does start to find himself more emotionally drawn into it, both because of his own ego and because of his dealing with this dad who's like really out of control.
Now, this isn't a movie that just by looking at the trailer, a movie like this where it seems like they're really touting the performances and already throwing out the nominations, like they're ready to throw out the Oscar word out there. With a movie like this, my biggest concern is that they start getting ridiculous with the story as far as throwing out so many red herrings at you. That
not really.
It doesn't go into that territory.
Is that there's stuff early on that, like, towards the beginning of the second act, they actually start to give you some of the keys that are the answer to everything. There's no way you could figure it out on your own, quite frankly. It's one of those that you'll get an idea of where the pieces are starting to fit together before the detective did, if you're paying attention at all at that point. Yeah. But it's so long, so much screen time goes on between the point when you see those and anything else pertinent to solving the mystery happens that you start to think that those were, in fact, just red herrings. You're like, what was the point of all that earlier? In fact, that's the biggest problem with this film for me is that it's a very slow-paced film, first off, almost glacially paced, and it's 2.5 hours long, and really nothing starts moving with the, oh, wow, we actually have a solid lead to follow up on until the last 35 minutes or so of this long film. So a lot of it is really hanging. The whole middle act is just this kind of morality play that's not really going anywhere about Hugh Jackman having this guy tied up, certain that he's the one who did it. And you're like, okay, maybe we should have something else pertinent happen in the plot and move this story along. I did find the movie starting to lose me for a while.
It was never losing me, and I was never bored, but I did feel the length. I mean, I do think it's too long. I don't know where you would make the cuts to tighten it. Like, it might be better as a 2-hour movie. But it's funny because before it started, the rep came out and read a statement by the director, which was like, I'm glad you see this movie. I just want you to know that this is my cut. This is not what the studio made me cut it to. This is my vision.
Yeah,
which
no
is one
kidding.
like, wait, was he held by gunpoint when he wrote this? Because it's like nobody ever does that.
Yeah.
And it made me watch the film and go like, I'm thinking the studio did step in here and say some things. Because honestly, like, it starts so much with that moral quandary of like what Hugh Jackman is doing. But then it comes that point where he goes like, all right, well, actually, you know what, kid, that's nice you did that, but people want to see the mystery. Let's get on to that, to the who done it.
Yeah.
And even though that's interesting too, I kind of wish it was more about one or the other. And I was afraid it was like, seemed almost like it was turning into Zodiac, where it's like, man, you follow this for a long time, and then you end up nowhere. It does end up somewhere. It's almost like they said, like, no, this has to have a period on it.
And in fact, that is good that it does that, because even though it was losing me in the middle at that point where I'm like, what are you going to do with this film? Once it starts going again back to the story, you start seeing not only getting like, okay, you're getting the answers you really want, and actually pretty interesting solution. Like the mystery about what happened to these girls is actually pretty cool, like the way it all falls together. But there's also this whole underlying allegory and balance of things that happen to the characters. There's a lot of beautiful metaphor underneath it that you don't have to look for, but that is there nonetheless. I will say that while that so much effort was put in to do that, it's enough and it's obvious enough that it irritated me a bit that it was a little sloppy and that it didn't really complete all of its tying up of all these allegories and metaphors. For instance, the way that things that happen to Hugh Jackman's character reflect things he himself did. The same can't be true of other people who were complicit in the acts that he did as well, which I thought was kind of like, well, aren't you going to tie all that together too? I don't know. I mean, that might be nitpicking a bit, but if you have a film that's trying so strongly to have that part of it, a big present of it, like a big reason to enjoy the film, it feels like you got to complete it. And yeah, that irritated me a little. But ultimately, it's worth sitting through that middle part to get to the end to see, wow, that was pretty solid, pretty dark, and has that ending that I love because it irritates the shit out of some people and has other people go, okay, that was exactly how to
People walk out there irritated. That's an excellent question I think you brought up. We say, are there too many red herrings? All these, because I think what you're saying is if we're talking about the acting, how everything is amazing with these characters and the dialogue and all that kind of stuff, but does this end up being sort of a typical Hollywood mystery? And I think it does. I think that because I think that there's a point. Yeah, well, for me, I think that there's a point where all these hints that they give you, they connect too coincidentally to where, yeah, that's Hollywood right there.
That's what I mean about the studio stepping in.
And then there's a point where I won't spoil anything, but there's a point where you get the villain's speech. I did this because of this. Sit down while I explain this to you.
And that's the last 30 minutes of the movie?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, I don't want to ruin anything, but I thought, man, because this director, his name is Dennis. I'm looking at his name right now. Dennis Villeneuve. He's Canadian.
Sure.
Yeah, he's got one of them crazy Canadian names.
I'll buy what you're selling.
It sounds like a Spanish name.
Yeah, well, actually, he went off and he made a Spanish-Canadian movie that was released at the same time as this, and I think this also was at the Toronto International Film Festival, and it has
maple syrup with cayenne pepper.
And it also has Jake Gyllenhaal in it, playing two roles. What I was reading,
more bang for your buck.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, when I was watching, I was like, you know what, this director, very good director. I didn't mind how long it was because I thought that deliberate direction that he has, I thought that helped. What could have been very obvious clues here and there, his direction is what kind of helped that out. That's what kind of helped throw things off. And as I say, he's very good with actors. So, yeah, when you look at it like that, man, this is an actor's movie. This is not really one for story. Even though he took this script, and I think he did something better with something that wasn't really up to his directing skills. I think that story is a little weak. But overall, I would say that that's the reason why this movie works, because it is an actor's film. I mean, that's why you're gonna be sucked in. Yeah, and another thing that this director did with this movie is that, hey, you know what? Great to see. Summertime is over. You're looking for that adult drama, the one that comes out and just really hits hard, the one you've been looking for after all these aliens and monsters and explosions and shit. This is the first great one to come out the gate after, good post-summer drama, man.
And you got 2 hours and 30 minutes of it.
To enjoy.
There you go.
Bring a pillow.
Bring a pillow. Yeah.
This is like watching a whole season of The Killing in one movie.
and
Which
maybe
he saved you 10 hours.
And if you don't like the movie, maybe you'll come out with a friend. Man, all three of us got the same story, the same separate story from a guy. Now you know Johnny.
Johnny
Laurie's husband.
Yes.
Yeah, Johnny came out and gave all of us the same speech.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. Y'all started saying, yeah. I was like, y'all weren't standing with me when he told me. Did he rehearse this?
He must have rehearsed it and just tried it out. Did his stand-up routine on everybody. Because I was over filling out my comment sheet, and he's like, hey, Leon, did you like that movie? I was like, yeah, man, I actually liked it quite a bit. I didn't. I hated it. It was the worst movie I've ever seen.
Unsolicited.
Yeah,
and let me guess, this whole him going to each and every one of you took another 2 hours and 30 minutes, right? Before you got out of the theater.
He walked me from the bathroom to the car.
Well, it would have been a shorter speech if he hadn't been waiting for rim shots to come in every so often. But he just said, the acting was terrible. And it was so far-fetched. I tell you, man, they just don't make the movies like they used to. When I grew up watching Burt Reynolds. I like Burt Reynolds and Smokey and the Bandit. They don't make clever movies no more.
Now keep in mind,
and the Bandit. Hold on.
Keep in mind that he's told you. He said, "Man, I watched this movie. This movie was far-fetched. It was silly. How come they don't make movies that make sense anymore? Like Smokey and the Bandit.
How come you don't got a real detective like Sheriff Buford T. Just
honestly, when he said it, I had to set my pencil down.
I know.
I was like, am I being punked? What's going on?
Actually, and he came up on me again, unsolicited. I was in the bathroom pissing, and he was holding my dick. Hey, Corey, you like that movie? Oh, Johnny, what you doing here, man? Hey, man, how come they don't make movies like that? Can I tell you when I get out?
He turned his dick up so you're peeing on yourself.
And Johnny, wash your hands before you leave. But man, he gave you the same speech, right?
Exact same speech. Even with the Burt Reynolds thing, and I literally went. I sounded like Archer. Burt Reynolds.
That Jake Gyllenhaal, he ain't no Burt Reynolds, I tell you.
Damn, brother, you couldn't give me a Godfather.
right? Like, they don't make them like they used to. You're like, yeah, I know. Yeah, like this worthless piece of shit that I watched back in the 70s.
I would have taken Convoy over the Smokey and the Bandit.
This one had some hipster cred to it or something.
Shit, I would have taken one of the Herbie movies from there.
All right. Let's not get carried away.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry.
Smoking the Bandit's a fun movie.
Hey, look,
I know, I love Smoking the Bandit, but don't come telling me I'm looking for the serious days of cinema. You gonna throw fucking Smoking the Bandit.
They don't make movies like Top Gun anymore.
Yeah,
all right?
Jake Gyllenhaal, he ain't no detective like Maxwell Smart.
Yeah. By the way, I love Johnny. So if Johnny hears this, I'm just messing with him. I just found it funny that Johnny actually had a script. Johnny was in his car. He was rehearsing that shit. Hey, man.
I'm going to make my own podcast.
Hey, Blank, did you like this movie? Me, I did not.
My podcast called Smokey and all that other bullshit.
This is no Naked Gun film. Period.
Why can't they make movies like they did back in the 70s?
Yeah, where's Burt Reynolds at?
He actually did have Herbie the Friend, like Herbie. No. Smoking the Bandit. Yes, that works. Man, you know what, though? Coming back to this, I really did enjoy this. It does have some shortcomings, but when a movie like this keeps me on the edge of my seat, when it has me really tense, I'm looking at my fingers right now. I had fingernails when I walked in. When I walked in, I got 3 of them missing. I really do. I was nervous the whole time.
Wow.
It works. It works despite the script, I think. And so if you go in and can just really enjoy the performances in the direction of this director here, then who's really good at thrillers, I think you will not feel like you wasted your time. I don't even think that 2.5 hours will feel like that long to you. I am giving this a full price.
I'm kind of right there with you. I was ready for an adult, thriller or almost a horror movie at points, and it did keep me like guessing like what is going on? How are we going to get to this? But like I said, I like where it started, like the whole like focusing on Hugh Jackman kidnapping Paul Dano. Because to me, that was like, wow, that's what this movie is really about. And I wish it hadn't had to go so much into the plot of the mystery. Not that it's bad, but it's just like I was more into that. But still, when that came out, I was like, I'm real glad I saw that. Yeah, it's a little long. Shave off 20 minutes or so, make it tighter. But I'm right there with you, Corey. I give it a full price.
You know, it's funny that like we all like this film, I think, but for slightly different reasons, because I thought the Paul Dano sequence was way over long. I was like, we get it.
Well,
move on.
You're right about that.
You know what? I agree with you there.
No.
too.
Like the way it started, I was really into it, but then they didn't commit to it. They were going to other things. So when they come back, it's like, oh, you got nothing going. Let's get past this.
And to be honest, when it got to the plot, and I didn't have any problem with the resolution. I thought the resolution was fun, and this movie needed some fun by that point. Yeah. You're like, look, you've been torturing Paul Dano for over an hour now.
Yeah, but don't you want to? Like every time I see Paul Dano,
well, you do admittedly. Yeah,
I mean, not even the character. You just want to torture Paul Dano.
Let me just pull out one fingernail.
You know what? I keep thinking that guy would have made a good Kick-Ass.
I thought that too. Actually, watch this. I thought that.
But I mean, I just didn't like it as much as you guys did. I did like it. I respect that it's a very smart film. There's a lot of stuff to like about this movie, especially the performances. But honestly, the glacial pace and the fact that it is way longer than it needs to be really stopped me dead in my tracks for a while. Even though if you stick with it, I think it's rewarding. I'm going to give this a high matinee.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. I'm going to tell you something. You heard I had a lot of problems with this. So I was almost at a matinee, a very high matinee, but I think I have the same number of problems that you do, just in a different area. Man. Yeah. And you know what? I would tell you this much, man. I didn't mind those Paul Dano scenes too much because those were really some of the most suspenseful parts and the emotionally wrenching part of it, because I think it's going to make people question, should you feel bad for this guy who you might suspect is doing something? It's going to really have people see it kind of wondering, okay, what side of this am I on? And I tell you something, man. This has you talk about all these horror movies with these cheap ass thrills and these cheap ass jump scares. This is what I'm talking about with a smart movie and these really intense scenes. There's a scene in here where Hugh Jackman beats an inanimate object, not a person, just an inanimate object, and he beats it, and the whole crowd goes like, "Wow!" Do you remember that?
Oh yeah,
yeah. I mean, people scream.
I don't know, guys. I'm kind of leaning towards Johnny's review of it. They just aren't making any movies like Smokey and the Bandit anymore. I'm sorry.
He's gonna wait for us. He's gonna wait for y'all to leave. He's gonna follow you out to the park and like, hey, did you like that review? I like that Smokey and the Bandit review. Y'all gonna be like, man, I was in the review call. I don't know.
What in the world did you do?
Someone has to make him talk, or they're gonna die. 5 days we got now. We're running out of time.
You don't even know that it's him.
You have to know someone, and he knows where this guy is. Why aren't you telling me?
This ain't right.
Why?
This guy's a fake. The girls are still out there.